I haven't been live in a while and happy to be here chatting with y'all. Um, I wanted to spend a little time today talking about emotional intelligence. And it's something that I've spent some time doing trainings in my past jobs before. Um, I developed like kind of a whole training, not a whole training program, but a training program that included emotional intelligence. And I feel like it was really hitting buzzword level when I did that. And it's something that since that time or in around that time, because of the buzzword status, and it was 100% on everyone's buzzword bingo card at the time. I think a lot of that, there's this automatic backlash online of, emotional intelligence is BS. Literally saw an article that said that. And if you start Googling it, you say, what is emotional intelligence? You get all these great articles about what it is and why it's important. And then if you start saying like, well, what does it mean? Was it real? You start getting these really obnoxious things that people have written of like some of my favorite articles that I saw was like, don't believe the hype around emotional intelligence. Thanks, that's helpful. It's time to stop talking about EQ because it doesn't actually exist. Again, great. My favorite is the last one, and it's emotional intelligence is bogus. Here's why. Okay, that's simply people trying to get your attention and clickbait and all of that because emotional intelligence is real. It's a thing. And the last guy's use of bogus only makes me think about Bill and Ted, and I really can't even take him seriously because of it. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about what it is and why it's important. And I do use this when I'm coaching clients in the Inspirational Leader Accelerator because I think it's important to understand the basics of emotional intelligence and put a lot of this into your head, always have it top of mind, and work on improving it so that you can be a stronger leader and help your team better. So let's start with what really the basic of what emotional intelligence is. There's four components that I think of um, in emotional intelligence, and they kind of fall into two different categories. The first is all about you, okay? And this is in my coaching model. First thing we always do is start with yourself, understand and know yourself better, which is absolutely the very first part of this. It's about self awareness of your own emotion and your own emotional responses to things. Can you recognize when you're happy, sad, fearful, anxious, confused, when you get that weird feeling about a person that you're talking to, can you put your finger on what that weird feeling is? I have a reaction to people that don't feel authentic. And I've learned to understand that that weird feeling I get is about authenticity. And I don't trust them until they show me that they're trustworthy because I've been spot on a lot of people that just clearly had a facade up and weren't authentic. So, can you understand and equate your reactions and your feelings to to an emotional response that you understand what it means to you? So not just I'm happy, but this thing or this action gives me happiness. So it's kind of understanding that whole piece of it and knowing yourself really well. The second part about yourself is can you regulate self-regulation? Can you once you've identified those emotions and those responses, can you control how they are impacting you personally, your health, your body, your um, internal response, and can you control what comes out of your mouth next? This was one of the things I had a lot of work on, and when I get stressed and when I live in that stress state for a long time. So for me, that was two different jobs. I had the same experience where by the end of my time there, I was run so ragged. I was so emotionally drained at all times that I really lost the ability to self regulate. And that's when I end up yelling at people. So self regulation can change also based on how you are feeling, what's going on, what level of anxiety and stress you've been living with. But the ability for self regulation is super important and a key component of emotional intelligence. So, those two are all about yourself. The other two components are really focused on others. So, this is first perceiving the emotions of others. Can you understand based on what people are saying and how they're behaving and all that goes into body language, what their feelings are and their response to what you're doing or saying is. And then can you respond to those emotions appropriately? And there's also an element of influence in there, of can you then also help mediate that person, like kind of talk them down, get them in a different state of mind so that you can come to a better understanding together if that's where you are. So why does this matter for leaders? Why is this important? Let's start with the first two components, starting with you, self-regulation and self-awareness. This is important because you don't want to be that leader that can't control themselves. Have you ever had that leader who just blows up on a moment's notice and just starts screaming at people? I have. Owner of a company that I used to work for long ago could really not control his emotions in front of staff. And I was literally a peon sitting in my cube one day in a 6-pack of cubes out in the open air surrounded by offices. And one of our project managers was standing talking to someone, and the owner of the company came tearing down the hallway, stopped him in his tracks, and screamed at him for 10 minutes and dropped every expletive you can think of, like new ones I hadn't heard before, which is impressive for me. And it was shocking. I wasn't even part of it. I was sitting in my cube listening to it, and it was so uncomfortable and something you just absolutely don't want to be even near, let alone the person who's on the receiving end of it. So after his tirade, he stomped away, and the project managers kind of looked around at all of us. Thank God he had a sense of humor, because this became one of my favorite stories from the place. And just was like, guess it's time to write my resignation letter, and walked away. So at least he knew how to handle it. He recognized what was happening, and he had the emotional intelligence not to fire back and to kind of even laugh it off a little bit and go do his thing. Our owner lacked emotional intelligence, and I would never, he may have owned the company, but I would never call the man the leader. This is why it's important to understand your emotions, your reactions, and be able to regulate them. So what you get out of those first two components as a leader is when you know yourself really well and can regulate those emotional responses. You can function better when you're in crisis mode, which as a leader, you're always going to find yourself there in some way, right? Especially during crisis mode, everyone's looking to you as the leader for what do we do, what happens next? And they will run with that emotional response also. If you freak out, everyone's freaking out. So if you are able to control your responses during that time, your calm rubs off on everyone else. You're also able to respond in difficult situations, maybe not crises, but a project goes off the rails. You have a really difficult team member or a difficult dynamic that's going on. You can respond in a way that doesn't shut down conversation, that doesn't shut down people, because you're regulating your emotions. You can address issues head on without making it about the people. You can address issues without blaming, without criticizing, without going down that path. Because again, even in the moment that you're upset about something being wrong, you can regulate, focus on the problem, address whatever may have led to it in a calm manner, and one that doesn't put people on edge. Excuse me. It also allows you to be more open to what people tell you, which is extremely important in a team dynamic, especially as the leader, that you are able to accept criticism and take responsibility when things go wrong. You're not dodging, and you're not in a place where you don't have the confidence or the emotional control to say, yep, I messed that one up. I got that. I'll take it. So all of that then allows you to also move on after that crisis, after that challenge, after that confrontation, rather than hold on and dwell on those emotions, to put a bow on it, finish off whatever needs to happen, and then move on with your life and move on with the team. So all of this, I think the biggest result from having strong emotional intelligence as a leader is that you're able to do all those things for yourself and your team that ultimately establish and build trust in the team, which is the foundation for a high-functioning team. You can make deeper connections because you're willing to open up more. You understand your emotional response. You understand and you're more open to sharing that and helping people understand their own emotional response. And that just grows trust and the ability to work together. Sorry, I'm still have a little COVID cough just hanging out in here. So let's look at the other half of emotional intelligence, how you perceive and respond to other people's emotions. So the reason this part becomes very important as a leader is that you really want to be able to listen to your team and understand where they're coming from. This goes beyond the words that they're saying. You want to be able to take all of it in, that there's often times that you will hear someone saying words, yeah, I'm fine with that, but you can tell their shoulders have dropped. They're looking down. They don't agree, but they feel like they have to. And you need, as a leader, to be able to identify those moments and pull people back in. So you want to be able to listen and truly understand what your team is thinking and feeling beyond just the words they're using. It helps you empathize with your team and understand where they're coming from and what they're going through and what's happening in their lives, rather than just, you did that wrong, that's on you. Hey, what's going on? Help me understand what's happening. Oh, you've been up for 3 days straight because your kid is having night terrors? I understand that. All right, so here's how we're going to help manage that. 2 different responses. First one, very little emotional intelligence. Second one, strong leader, strong emotional intelligence. I think having a high ability to perceive and respond to others' emotions also helps you land on decisions that work well for your team, that you've understood and listened and took in everything that people are hearing and saying, and then you're able to kind of put together that solution that then everyone can commit to. And in that process, you can also identify who's not ready to commit to it yet. That as you present the solution, as you say, here's what I've heard everyone say, here's what I think we should do, you have the emotional ability to say, oh, everyone's nodding, you're not nodding. You're saying yes, but you're kind of still in your shell. Let's hash this out a little more. What are you thinking about? That's how you get to best solutions that everyone commits to and gets results on. And then lastly, accountability is one of the key components also to a highly cohesive team. And when you have this ability, you are able to hold people accountable without damaging relationships, without breaking trust, without violating anything, because you are yourself regulating your emotion and understanding where they're coming from. So you're able to have this conversation around accountability rather than using carrots and sticks as the only method and mean to holding someone accountable. So I think all of this makes it, excuse me, super important to work on emotional intelligence, be very aware of your own responses and really be attuned to what your team is doing. And I think when you have a team, you start to get a really good feeling about each of them in recognizing those responses. So I think this is also something it's important to understand, that this is not an innate ability. It's not like IQ, where you kind of like that the reasoning abilities and the things that IQ measures about your intelligence are kind of built into your brain. EQ is absolutely something that you can work on, that we all have different lived experiences. We've all been taught different things growing up. And some of us have some natural tendencies to be more empathetic. I'm a total empath, and I will carry your sadness with me to take it off your shoulders anytime I can. So I have some natural tendencies towards empathy, but it's not that you can't learn empathetic responses and to recognize all of this and to be stronger leaders by using emotional intelligence. Absolutely something that you can work on and improve, not just something that's innate. So with that, I'm going to wrap up for today. I just really wanted to put it out there because it's funny that every time I've been working on some emotional intelligence trainings and things, just always come across these articles that make it sound like it's such a 4-letter word. And I'm here to tell you it's not. It's necessary, it's important, and it makes you a much stronger leader. So with that, if you're interested in knowing more how I can support your journey in becoming a stronger leader, in using emotional intelligence to do so, and inspiring results in your team, set up a time to talk. Got a link that just popped up. 30 minutes, free chat, learn how I can help you through whatever challenges you're having in transforming to being an inspirational leader. Thanks all for hanging out.